Now, when this season first began and I looked at the schedule for the Detroit Pistons, initially I was a little bit upset because we look at their first few games of the season. They're playing teams like the Indiana Pacers that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're playing the Boston Celtics. They're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who is right now the best team in all of the NBA. They played the Miami Heat twice already. They played the Los Angeles Lakers. So I'm thinking to myself, the Detroit Pistons, they're coming off that season of turmoil. Why do we have to start our season playing off against some of the heavyweights in the NBA? But now that I've watched the Pistons play and I looked at the first few games of the season, I realized this tough schedule to start the year is really a blessing in disguise for the Detroit Pistons, because one thing I forgot about this team is that they have a chip on their shoulder. They're very upset about what happened last season, because we all know that the Detroit Pistons, they're so much better. That young core, that young nucleus, they're so much better than what happened, than what transpired last season. So we get to this year, and I look at the Detroit Pistons, these first few games, when they're playing against these heavyweights, they're looking like they belong on the same court as these teams until their youth and their inexperience catches up with them. In a lot of those games against the Indiana Pacers, against the Boston Celtics, against the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were leading in those games and even looked like they were going to close those games out and win them. And then we just seen some youthful mistakes for the Detroit Pistons, and they let those games slip out. And then we see them start the season with a 4-game losing streak, but immediately after that, they win 4 out of their next 6 ball games, and the Detroit Pistons look like they're learning on the fly. So that's what I've been taking away. That's my biggest takeaway so far from this season. The Detroit Pistons, they're learning how to win basketball games, and the more that they figure out how to do that, the more dangerous this young basketball team will be. And that's one of the main things we talked about here on the channel with the Detroit Pistons all off season long. When they get into these negative situations, are they going to be able to keep the negativity there for a short period of time? One thing I like to look at is the losing streaks. Now, the Detroit Pistons, they started this season on a 4-game losing streak, and with a young team like this, you really don't want to see that number get no higher than losing 4 straight games in a row, because then it gets to get a little bit demoralizing. So for the Detroit Pistons to snap out of a 4-game losing streak, go and win 4 out of their next 6 games, I think that is a huge positive sign for this team. And then we look at those negative situations inside the games. Can the Detroit Pistons learn how to win games when Cade Cunningham is not having when he's not having the best night shooting the basketball, or when he's not the highest scoring person on the Detroit Pistons? Can we be in those situations in these games when we're up 10, when we're up 15, and hold on and play with the lead and protect the ball for the remainder of the game? Can we learn how to play from behind? Can we learn how to play from behind, come back trailing 10, 15 points and win these ball games? And these last few games, I think the Detroit Pistons, they have been really tested playing against some of the best teams in the NBA, and we see as the season goes on, it is making them so much better. In the most recent game I would like to allude to, this game just actually happened. I just finished watching it not too long ago, but their group play in the NBA Cup game against the Miami Heat. This showed a lot of character by the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons, it was a pretty good game. They didn't get up too big against the Miami Heat, but they were in cruise control for a majority of the game, and they got a nice hefty lead when towards the end of the fourth quarter, and then Tyler Hero out of nowhere exploded. And this seems like this seems like things that just happens to the Detroit Pistons. When teams play the Pistons, players just get superpowers, and their team just gets superpowers, and they hit all their timely shots. And it seemed like we were about to witness another Detroit Pistons L, but we saw the growth of this young team. They were able to survive that crazy onslaught by Tyler Hero. He's looking like Tracy McGrady from a few years back, but he was hitting some crazy shots, and that's a crazy momentum swing, because a lot of us thought the ball game was over, and then he comes down and he hits 3-4 straight threes, and he finishes the game with 40 points. And usually when a player like that has a performance against the Detroit Pistons, we're not able to withstand that, we're not able to endure that, and we end up losing the game. But the Detroit Pistons, they stayed focused, they stayed strong, and despite turning the ball over a lot down the stretch, they were able to go into overtime and win this ball game. And we look at that last play, looked like some big miscommunication on the Miami Heat ends. I think JB Bickerstaff using Cade Cunningham as the inbounder really threw everything off for Eric Spoelstra, because you would think the Detroit Pistons with how good Cade Cunningham is, he would be taking that last shot for the Detroit Pistons, but they use him as the decoy on the inbound pass and also as the best passer on the team, and he throws an absolute dime to Jalen Duren. And then Eric Spoelstra, he makes another mental lapse, calling a timeout when he didn't have any. So the Detroit Pistons, they were able to knock down a technical free throw, and then Michael Beasley got fouled, and he knocked down another free throw to seal the deal. So we learned a lot about the Detroit Pistons in this game, and now they're starting to make some three-point shots. And I think all of this just goes back to how good Cade Cunningham is. And I hope you guys are not getting tired of me saying that, but this Cade Cunningham is so special. But we talked about how if the Detroit Pistons get some weapons around him and some three-point shooters, the Detroit Pistons are going to look completely different. And that's another thing about the competition that they played so far throughout the season. When you play against the best teams in the NBA and you play against the best head coaches and the best defenses, their number one goal is to not let the opposing team's best player have a great ball game. So throughout these first few games, we have seen Cade Cunningham getting blitzed, we see him getting double teamed, and we have seen his assist numbers through the roof. He's getting triple doubles, he's getting at least 8 assists every single game, and he's making and as high as the turnovers is, he is making plays, he is coming off the basketball, and he is racking up assists. But a huge part of that goes to the personnel around him. Now he's kicking it to guys like Tobias Harris, who can knock down the catch and shoot three, even though he's in a bit of a shooting slump to start the season. But he can also attack closeouts, get downhill, and score from the other two levels on the basketball court. Michael Beasley has been a godsend. He's been ultra aggressive whenever he gets the basketball. He's a great floor stretcher. He's not hesitant shooting those three-point shots, and his shot is starting to fall too. He knocked down 4 out of his three-pointers tonight. Tim Hardaway Jr. being out on that wing makes a difference. Jaden Ivey looks like he's progressing, and the Detroit Pistons, their offensive weapons just look like they're doing a lot better when it comes to independently scoring the basketball and getting the basketball from Cade Cunningham whenever he's getting trapped in double teams. So I think the Detroit Pistons, facing these tough teams, facing these tough defenses to start the season, is going to make the remainder of the season go so much smoother for them when they start to play the weaker teams in the Eastern Conference and the weaker teams in the Western Conference. Those games, they should have learned a lot from the battles that they've already gone through, and I think it's going to show through their play. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. The Detroit Pistons, their tough schedule to start the season has been doing wonders for them. And if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below what you think about the Detroit Pistons so far this season, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.